What's going on, everybody? Nick from the Sound Coop, and I got a fun one for you guys. Today, we are going to dime the California Tweed by Mesa Boogie. Now, I've already made 2 other videos on this amp. I made one showing off the clean tones. I also made a video exploring the edge of breakup tones in this amp, and I basically set it to one neutral edge of breakup position and then used different guitars to kind of push the amp around in different directions. I'm going to link both of those videos below. Check them out if you want to. Today, we're just going to do overdrive. We're going to crank this thing completely to the max. We're going to dime the input. We're going to dime some of the EQ points. We're going to try the normal and the low input mode. And we're going to try out a bunch of different guitars. I want to make sure you guys understand how versatile this amp can be even in the overdrive position. You can get classic rock tones. You can get stuff that's like more modern and jangly, which is really cool. And this thing will also do tones that like verge on like a low fuzz, you know, like an octave low fuzz. Really pretty cool. So let's get into all that. I'm going to play a whole bunch of different riffs, and I've kind of picked the riffs dependent on the guitar. So we're going to start with the Murphy Lab Jr. This guitar and this amp, absolutely a match made in heaven. We're going to use this in open G to explore some Keith Richard tones. We'll check out some Black Crowes tones. Then we're going to move on to the Novo Serus T. And we're going to use this in the bridge position. This is a high output Tele pickup. We'll explore some Joe Walsh with this. We'll maybe do some more Keith Richards with this. Really cool. Then we'll move over to the neck pickup and we'll try out this P90. This thing is going to make the amp sound very much like a fuzz, and it's really, really cool for you guys that love fuzz tones. So there's going to be a lot here to check out. We're also going to try out a Fender Esquire. Something about this amp and one pickup guitars, you're going to want to hear this thing through the amp. Like if you like modern, jangly, almost kind of closer to edge of breakup tones, like this is a lower output pickup than all my other guitars that we're going to show off today. So we'll kind of get back into that edge of breakup with this guitar. Sounds absolutely wonderful. I'm going to really quick, just to indulge you Strat guys, we'll plug the Strat in just really fast. Just try something out, just so nobody feels left behind. And then we're going to end with the Mulecaster. And this thing, I'm not going to play a whole lot with this. I'm just going to use it to show off the dynamic range of this amp. Now, some of you might have a guitar in your collection that has a really broad dynamic range. For me, that's this guitar. Volume knob all the way at 10, amp all the way dimed. This guitar will do everything from clean tones all the way to full-on dirty tones, just dependent on what I do with my right hand. So really, really cool. If you're lucky enough to have a guitar that will do that, we're going to show off how dynamically versatile this amp can be. So yeah, let's get into it. Really quick, let's go over the front panel of the amp and the microphone setup. So we got the input dimed. The treble is at about 3 o'clock. The middle's like right around noon. The bass is a little bit less than noon. Presence is dimed. Master, you know, like maybe around 10 o'clock. No reverb coming from the amp. All the effects are coming out of the Pro Tools, and we're going to keep this thing in 20 watt mode for this whole demo. So I think that's the best place for it. It is loud in the other room, like with the input cranked, even with the master not even halfway up. It is unbearably loud out there. So this amp is no joke. As far as the amp setup, it's running out to the matching 2x12 California Tweed cab. On the cab, I'm using a Slate Digital ML2 modeling microphone. And in my Pro Tools, I'm running the Royer 121 emulation, which is like a classic ribbon microphone. Sounds really good for a setup like this. Just one mic today, super simple, no frills, and let's check out some tones. All right, in my opinion, this guitar plus this amp is instant Keith Richards. So we're just going to start right here. Right? Like immediately. It's got that kind of a zingy sort of an overdrive where the distortion is sitting just underneath the treble and the treble kind of gets left alone. Really cool. I always wondered how to get that sound. Tweed amp. Who would have known? Anyway, let's go down to the low input and just see what the difference is. Now, from my point of view, doing this kind of makes the amp sound a little bit more classic rock. So still very like distorted, a lot of overdrive, but a little bit more classic rock, a little more mellow, a little less modern maybe. I really like this sort of a thing for, like, if you turn the bass up all the way, you can kind of get that honky-tonk woman thing. Right? Very classic. But let's put the bass back a little bit below noon where it was, like right around there. And then let's go back to the normal input. And let's turn down the volume knob from 10 down to 7. So we're at 10. That's about 8. About 7. Now this really reminds me of the Black Crowes' Hotel Illness. I love that. Now, if we go back up to 10, it just makes it a little bit more modern. I think the notes get a little bit more lost depending on like how many notes you're playing. Dense chord structures, you can really have things get masked if you're not paying attention to your dynamics, but pretty darn cool sounding. Now, speaking of the Black Crowes, that new album they just released have a lot of tones that are kind of modern, that have a little bit of a throwback vintage vibe. So we're still dimed out here, and I think this does that perfectly well. Right? Kind of like modern, but throwback a little bit, just a little. One more, and then we're going to switch guitars. While we're here with it dimed, if you turn the bass all the way up, you get a sound that kind of reminds me of that fuzz tone that Keith Richards uses on Can't You Hear Me Knockin'. Right? Kind of close. Something about pushing that bass and activating those speakers a little bit more makes it sound a little bit like a fuzz. Let's just turn up the mids all the way. With the bass and the mids dimed, it's still surprisingly usable. Less so in the room. Because I'm using a microphone, the the EQ knobs don't have as much of an effect as they would as if you were standing in the room. I guarantee you it's just a wash of mids and lows in that room right now. But for comparison, let's just try this again. And then let's go mids back to noon and bass just a little bit below noon. So pushing that bass knob can do a lot of cool stuff. Anyway, let's switch guitars really quick and try something else. All right, we got the Novo Serus T now. We're going to start off in the bridge position. This has a Lindy Fralin pickup in it, and this has a blues output, which is hotter than like a standard Telecaster pickup. It's not his highest output, but it's definitely hotter than like a typical Tel pickup. So we're going to do some Joe Walsh here first. I want to turn down the gain just a little bit. We had it dimed on the last example, and I think the sweet spot is really a little bit less than dimed. I think the amp just performs a little bit better. Let's check it out. Right? Like pretty cool. Something about this amp just makes every bridge pickup fat. This position is also really good for doing that standard tuning Keith Richards thing. It just makes everything in the bridge position awesome. I completely love it. All right, let's move up to the neck pickup and let's try some fuzz type tones. If you know anything about the Tweed amps, you've probably heard people talk about the collapsing speaker. A lot of people associate this with Neil Young. This amp kind of does that thing. And I think essentially what's happening is the amp is sending so many lows to the speaker cabinet that it's sort of making the speakers fart out, for lack of a better word. They're just not keeping up with the sheer volume of what's going on. And so what kind of happens from my point of view is it sounds almost like a fuzz, like a low-end octave fuzz. It kind of gives you that unwieldy sort of a thing. I think this is great for doing single note lines, probably not as useful for doing like dense chord work or for doing like dense riffs. But I think let's just check this out. I'm not a big fuzz guy, so I don't particularly like this, but I'm going to show it off for you guys that do like fuzz. And then I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can get yourself away from that fuzz vibe while still getting good tones out of the amp. So let's check this out real quick. Little Gary Clark Jr. here, and I'm going to leave it in the bridge position just so you can hear. Now let's check out this P90. And we're not even fully dimed there. Like, let's just dime it out again. Like, from my point of view, I don't find that extremely usable, but some guys like that. Now, conversely, if you're playing something like a like single note lines, actually sounds really cool. It adds a ton of weight to single notes, just not quite as fun for like chord work. That's pretty thick, not a lot of definition there. Some guys might actually like that. I know that a lot of guys like fuzz. It's not really my thing. Couple different ways to solve this. Now, for one, if we just turn down the master a little bit, we're going to be pushing the speakers a little bit less. So I'll compensate the volume in my Pro Tools, but I'm just going to turn the master down to around 9 o'clock. instantly more usable, right? Like pretty surprisingly more usable. So you can almost think about the master knob as more bass, kind of. I don't actually know if it's happening at the master like gain stage or if it is in fact happening at the amp. I'm going to assume it's happening at the amp because of that whole collapsing speaker thing, but that made a pretty big difference. Let's just try that one more time. Pretty unwieldy. Master down to 9 again. It just doesn't get quite as saturated, which is really great. We'll put the master back where it was. Now there's another way you can handle this. You can just use the EQ. Now, if we just take all the bass out, it's not going to completely solve the problem. It's definitely a lot better. If we put the bass at about 9 and we put the mids at about 9 o'clock. You still get a pretty dense, saturated sound without that bass just overwhelming everything. So a couple of quick ways to handle this. Another way you can handle it is if you have a pedal like a Klon or like a Tube Screamer, both of those pedals notoriously roll off the low end. Those pedals are killer for pushing around this amp. This amp has a very low-mid distortion character. If you want to move yourself away from that, just use a pedal that rolls off the lows and you can basically take yourself almost anywhere you want to go. It's really pretty cool. So I'm going to save that for another video because pedals really push this amp around a lot. And that could be 20 minutes, half an hour just by itself. So pretty cool fuzz type tones. I think let's try the Esquire. I don't know what it is about one pickup guitars in this amp, but they play amazingly well together. This is a very different vibe though from the Junior. This is going to be way more jangly. I think it's a little bit more modern sounding just because it's a little bit brighter. But this guitar is especially cool for like pick notes. So let's start off with some Black Crows. And we've set the amp back to the way it was. So the mids are back at noon and the bass is back at a little bit less than noon. And we're not dimed out anymore. We've kind of turned the gain down a little bit. It's where it was in the last example. We're going to start off with this and then I'll change a couple things. Right? I mean, does that not sound awesome? Picked stuff like that sounds really, really good. Also, finger picking. Really, really cool. So, like we talked about before, this is pretty jangly. If I want more bass, I can of course just add more bass, but I can also just push the master more. These are the lowest output pickups we've tried today. So we're moving ourselves kind of more down towards edge of breakup, as I'm sure you can tell, but let's just push that master. So check this out. Pretty jangly. Let's just push the master a little bit. Instantly fattens and darkens up the signal a little bit. So really cool for a guitar like this. You can keep it twangy, or you can just push that master and get that thing to sound a little bit closer to the Junior. But just for fun, let's put that master back where it was and let's just push the bass all the way. Also really cool. Let's push the mids all the way. Pretty darn cool. I really like that a lot. Let's actually just push all the EQ knobs, treble, middle, and bass dimed. I mean, that sounds pretty cool, right? Like all knobs dimed. Let's dime the gain too and try that one more time, just for fun. So this is basically everything but the master's dimed. It's interesting, like for me, turning up that input gain a little bit makes it more trebly. Like you're getting more of the overdrive frequencies from the distortion. Pretty cool. So like it's kind of interesting that the input gain will kind of give you more trebly sounds, and the master, either the master itself or the master in conjunction with the speaker, will give you some thicker sounds. So a couple cool ways to push it around. Let's try the Strat out. All right, Strat time. Now, we've put the panel back to the way it was. I'm actually going to keep the input dimed on this one. We're in low output territory again, not dissimilar to the Telecaster, but even a little bit less output from my point of view. And this kind of puts us back towards edge of breakup. So like, I love that. Really cool. Neck pickup. Definitely a little thicker in that neck position. But we can also do like a little bit of a Mike McCready kind of a thing. That was the 4 position, 2 position. Back to the 1 position. Pretty darn cool. I love the Strat through this. It's a cool vibe for sure. One more guitar. Let's check out the dynamics of this thing using that Mulecaster really fast, and then we'll get out of here. All right, so again, the Mulecaster is cool because it has a wide dynamic range. And what I can do is I can turn the volume pot all the way up, so I'm maxed out on the guitar. We are dimed on the input gain on the amp. And this thing will still walk the line between clean and dirty. So if I play very, very lightly, and I do mean very lightly, and I couldn't do this on any other guitar, like I couldn't use my Esquire and get this same kind of a vibe. If I play lightly on the Esquire, it's still going to be pretty zingy, but just check this out. And even there at the end, it gets a little bit zingy when I dig in a little bit too much, but just check this out. It's not a subtle difference. It's almost like I turned on a tube screamer. Pretty cool. So if you have a guitar that has a dynamic range like this, I think you're going to love this amp. I think like a lot of people associate Tweeds, or they think about Tweeds as being like compressed sounding, or like with that collapsing speaker thing, not having a lot of dynamic range. This thing is just so wild that it walks that line between a blackface and a Tweed very, very well. And so much can be done with the multi-watt mode. We're at 20 watts here. That makes it a little bit more compressed, whereas if I run this thing in 40 watts, I can get all the distortion. It'll obviously be way louder, but I think more importantly, the dynamic range expands as you go upwards in wattage. So pretty cool. I really love this amp. If you guys have any questions about anything that happened here, get at me in the comments. I've been seeing a lot of people enjoying these videos, and I've been seeing a lot of people saying that they're going to buy one of these amps. I highly recommend it. Like, I wish I had gotten into the Tweed thing 2 decades ago. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't ready in my life for the Tweed thing at that time, but here I am, having neglected the Tweed for 25 years, and I'm really regretting doing that. So anyway, hope you guys liked the video. If you do, please like and subscribe. I do appreciate it. It helps out a lot, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye.